There's always a thrill to getting underway. Leaving the port of New York, bound for the Mediterranean. With the cargo secured, there's some free time for me, Joe Palmer, third mate aboard the Exeter. Time to relax and do a little thinking. The sea does that sort of thing to you. Makes you think and remember. Cool and deep, strange and mysterious, friend or enemy, that's the sea. In a way, it's like a great teacher. As David says in the Bible, "They that go down to the sea in ships, that do business in great waters, these see the works of the Lord, and see his wonders in the deep." I always wanted to see these things, ever since I began to read about the sea in books that I still read over and over again. Below deck is my cabin where I keep my books. This is home while I'm on board ship. It's small but comfortable. Most of my books are about the sea. The sea has always been an important part of literature. On long voyages, reading books is a good way to relax. Besides, one man couldn't possibly live all the sea experiences to be had, but he can read about them in the literature of the sea. For example, I earn my living from the sea as a sailor. Others do different jobs at sea. Many novels have captured the spirit of those who work on the sea. One of the best, I think, is Captains Courageous by Rudyard Kipling. The novel tells of a spoiled young boy named Harvey who joins the crew of a fishing schooner. By living with these fishermen and sharing their adventures, such as fishing for cod off the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, the boy learns that there's more to life than soft living. Harvey also discovers the courageous dignity of men who earn their living from the sea and the value of true friendship. But most important to Harvey, Kipling tells us, is that his sea experiences teach him that life is better with a purpose, and that all men, whether rich or poor, are dignified human beings. These are some of the lessons of life a boy learns as he works as a fisherman on the high seas. Fishing is one way men make a living from the sea. Sailing is another. A little over 100 years ago, in the age of the great sailing ships, being a sailor was a tough job. At a moment's notice, you had to be ready to climb the rigging, straight to the top, in fair weather or foul. Reefing sails was an especially dangerous task. Richard Henry Dana, in his book 2 Years Before the Mast, describes this experience. "How I got along, I cannot now remember. I laid out on the yards and held on with all my strength. I could not have been of much service, for I remember having been sick several times before I left the topsail yard." As a true account of American shipping in the 1830s, 2 Years Before the Mast is an historical document. The sea has always played an important part in man's history. The lure of the sea led men to discover and explore far-off places, to make history. The islands of the South Seas were first described by the English captain, James Cook. In his journals, Cook wrote first-hand reports about the lives and customs of the people who lived in this exotic part of the world. Yes, I know that exploration of the world is part of the literature of the sea. Many writers have used actual places and historic events as backgrounds for fictional tales. Tahiti, for example, is the background for a very famous historical novel about the South Seas, Nordhoff and Hall's Mutiny on the Bounty. This story of the 18th century English ship Bounty is based on actual events. I remember an exciting scene from that mutiny, as originally written by John Fryer, master of the Bounty. Just at the dawn of day, I was alarmed, but when I jumped up, a man laid his hand on my breast and told me to lay down again. "Sir, you are a prisoner." They told me to hold my tongue, or I was a dead man. The entire thrilling account of the mutiny and what happened afterwards to the ship's crew is the basis of the exciting novel Mutiny on the Bounty. Another adventurous novel that tells of a mutiny is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This time, the mutiny is planned by pirates. They scheme together to take away from a young boy named Jim Hawkins the map leading to a fabulous buried treasure. Luckily, Jim, hiding in the ship's apple barrel, overhears the scheme and warns the captain. How the pirates are outwitted in their plans to steal the treasure makes for a real reading treat. Hunting for buried treasure was only one of the excitements of the sea. Men of 19th century New England found that hunting whales was another. Ishmael, the hero of Herman Melville's novel Moby Dick, tells a violent story of whaling in the mid-19th century. The whaler on which the story is set is called the Pequod. This is the way Ishmael describes her. She was a ship of the old school, rather small, if anything, long-seasoned and weather-stained in the typhoons and calms of all four oceans. The master of the Pequod is one of the most amazing figures ever created in a sea story, Captain Ahab. Ahab's passionate search for a white whale forms the basis for one of the best studies of intense human emotions ever written in the English language. Yes, I know the sea has always affected the emotions of men. Many writers have attempted to translate these emotions into words, often through poetry. What kinds of emotions? Loneliness, for example. Loneliness at sea. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, in The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, expressed it this way: "This soul hath been alone on a wide, wide sea. So lonely 'twas, that God himself scarce seemed there to be." But most times, you get a feeling that the sea is filled with life and friendship. One poet sums it up this way: "A life on the ocean wave, a home on the rolling deep. We shoot through the sparkling foam like an ocean bird set free. Like the ocean bird, our home we'll find far out on the sea." And when you set sail late in the day, you begin to think of the great mystery of the sea and the greater mystery of life. Alfred Lord Tennyson compared a sea voyage to the final voyage of life in his poem Crossing the Bar. Sunset and evening star, and one clear call for me, and may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea. Twilight and evening bell, and after that, the dark. And may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. Sad emotions, glad emotions, all inspired by the sea. You'll find them here in the literature of the sea. Books that tell about the sea as a place to work, as part of man's history, as a place of adventure, and part of man's emotions. These books, and many more like them, are good reading. They can open for you a new world, the world of the sea, as a background for literature.